Welcome to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Thursday, September 30th, 2021. And we are live. Hope everybody's doing well today. It's been a very busy day. Some of you saw the broadcast I did earlier today. I interviewed Professor Manu Ampim about the Kushite Nubian Conference that's taking place, international virtual conference that's taking place Friday, October 1st through Sunday, October 3rd. And you can watch it online. So visit our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, or our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. You can watch that broadcast. Okay, so on today's show, I saw a story yesterday from CNN, and I did some research on this story today in between doing some interviews, and then I did a broadcast also today to promote my new online course that starts this weekend. Out of Tennessee, we've talked about critical race theory here on the show and this right-wing movement to take over school boards, control what's being taught in schools, different things like this, right? Well, in Tennessee, some parents are saying that some books make students feel discomfort because they're white. Some books make students feel discomfort because they're white. And they say a new law backs them up on this. All right. And I went through this entire story from CNN, and I looked at some other sources also. And you have to get the feeling that you have some white people who just feel guilty about a history of mistreatment of non-white people. And they're trying to then use their children as an excuse to shut down these conversations and shut down this history being taught. And there are 4 books that they take aim at. It's an organization called Moms for Liberty. Moms for Liberty. I'm not sure whose liberty you're talking about, but it's an organization called Moms for Liberty. And it's in Williamson County, okay? Williamson County in Tennessee. And Williamson County is the school district is 97% white. 97% white. Surprise, surprise. But they're taking objection to some children's books that are used in 2nd grade. 2 of the books deal with Ruby Bridges, who desegregated an elementary school when she was 6 years old. Ruby Bridges. Another one is about the March on Washington for children. And, going through just researching this story, it's just stupid, but this is in a wealthy white district. And you have some wealthy white mothers who are pushing this agenda. They're pushing this right-wing agenda. So we're going to talk some about this story. It's a crazy, crazy story, but it could be coming to a school board near you. And we've talked about how a lot of this push to take over local school boards is being fueled by right-wing conservative organizations and amplified by Fox News and things like this. So we're going to talk about this story here out of Tennessee. Now, this is after Governor Bill Lee, the governor of Tennessee, back in May, signed into law HB 580, which is a law aimed at banning so-called critical race theory being taught in schools. This is a crazy story. I saw this yesterday. We had such a jam-packed show because we dealt with R. Kelly and the Jezebel stereotype, adultification bias in Black girls and hypersexuality. And that was part 2 of that conversation. So I said, look, we'll deal with this story today. Also, today, September 30th, is the anniversary of the Elaine, Arkansas Race Massacre that took place September 30th, 1919. Started September 30th, 1919. And you had African-American sharecroppers who were trying to organize to get higher wages. And this turns into a race massacre. And at least 100 African-Americans were killed. Now, some estimates are up to 800 African-Americans were killed. We'll talk about the Elaine, Arkansas massacre that took place September 30th, 1919. Okay. All right. Now, on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right now it's corrects your own behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you can control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the compass of his or her actions, because the mind can do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events in history, politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter, text the word Kemet, Kemet, to 22828. To sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And then also at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, be sure to register for my new 10-week online course that starts on Sunday, October 3rd. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. In this class, we deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. You don't have to be present in the class. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived. They're recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. You don't have to be present in class, okay? So you can register for that. The class is regularly $130, on sale $80. As soon as you register, there's archived content that you can start watching also. All right, I want to jump into this first story here. So we've talked about a number of these crazy stories dealing with what conservatives call critical race theory. And last week we talked about a book ban that was lifted in Pennsylvania, a school district in Pennsylvania. But if we look at this story here, and we're going to go to clip 1, Shakita, here in just a second. If we look at this story from CNN, Tennessee parents say some books make students feel discomfort because they're white. They say a new law backs them up. Okay. Now, I haven't heard any of the students say that the books make them feel uncomfortable or discomfort because they're white. Only white people, white adults are saying this. Haven't heard any children say this. So at the center of this is a white woman named Robin Steinman, who pulled her daughter out of a public school over a mask mandate in 2020. And what we're seeing is the mask mandates being weaponized, and groups that were protesting against mask mandates have now weaponized critical race theory. Groups that were protesting against mask mandates have now weaponized critical race theory to put pressure on local school boards, in some cases bully local school boards. And you have some of these crazy people running for school board positions and taking over local school boards. Read this piece here from NBC News as an expose on all of this. We talked about this a number of times here on the show. Critical race theory battle invades school boards with help from conservative groups. Critical race theory in battle invades school boards with help from conservative groups. Okay. And this goes deep into what's behind all this. And this is all a backlash to the protests that were taking place, the Black Lives Matter protests that were taking place in summer 2020 behind the killing of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and others, and a heightened sense of awareness about racism and things like this. This whole critical race theory is a backlash to all of that, and it being politicized at the local school board level is part of this whole weaponization, part of this whole agenda. Okay, now Robin Stedman put her daughter in private school. Her daughter now put her daughter in private school. Her daughter misses public school, but Robin Stedman is keeping her out not because of masks, but because of lesson plans. She says make students feel bad about their race. Now I don't know what type of poll Robin Stedman did to determine that the little children feel bad about their race because of books that they're reading. I noticed she didn't talk about African American children being made to feel bad about their race because of white supremacy being taught in schools. I noticed she didn't talk about that. Okay. And the misinformation taught about the history of slavery, etc., and the omission of African civilizations being taught: Ghana, Songhai, Mali, Zimbabwe, Great Zimbabwe, Abyssinia, Kush, ancient Kemet. Now, Robin was interviewed by CNN. She said, the school bus goes right in front of my house and my kid is dying to ride it, but not until I have deemed that the curriculum is safe and will do no harm. Now, I haven't seen anything that says Miss Robin has any degrees in education, any experience teaching children besides her own. Okay, I haven't seen anything that like qualifies her to deem whether something is safe or not for other people's children, etc. Things like this. She is counting on a new Tennessee law signed by Governor Bill Lee, Republican, to force schools to end that curriculum and ban at least one book in the elementary school library written from the perspective of Mexican Americans. And is dealing with Mexican American children who were discriminated against in California in 1940. Oh, how dare they? One of the things that now this organization that she formed called Moms for Liberty, I'm not sure whose liberty this is for, Moms for Liberty. They're against books, two books dealing with Ruby Bridges, who desegregated a school in sixth grade. I mean, when she was 6 years old. And it's one aspect of one of the books they're against, but also this book here dealing with Mexican American children being discriminated against in the 1940s. And then a book about the March on Washington for children. We're going to deal with all this nonsense on the other side of the break, because this white supremacist conservative initiative could be coming to a school district near you. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Stand by, everybody. Stand by. We're on commercial break. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Invite your friends to tune in. Who still needs to register for the 10-week online course that we're teaching on Sundays? Class number 1 starts Sunday, October 3rd. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for it now. As soon as you register, there's bonus content that you can start watching. Stand by, one commercial break. Back from break in 3 minutes. Stand by. Stand by. It's been a busy day. Okay, stand by. Back from break in 2 minutes. Okay, stand by.
Network show we deal with current events of history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Unfortunately, many people confuse what racism is. Racism is a power structure. Put us in this predicament. It's going to be laws and policies that take it out. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the compass of his or her actions because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know.
We have it all on 910 AM Superstation. 910, the Superstation, Detroit's only African-American talk radio.
Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Thursday, September 30th, 2021, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, please share this broadcast on your social media platforms. Give us a thumbs up also. Give us a like, a thumbs up, a heart. And if you like this type of information, be sure to register for the new 10-week online course that I'm teaching on Sundays, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1860. Actually, this one, I'm sorry, it's Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. This is on Sundays, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Class number 1 starts up Sunday, October 3rd. We'll deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We'll do the class live. All the sessions are archived. You can go back and watch them anytime. All right. I want to go back to this story here that comes to us by way of CNN. Tennessee parents say some books make students feel discomfort because they're white. They say a new law backs them up. Okay, now, I haven't seen any polls from white students that say the books make them feel guilty. I just hear the parents, some of the parents, saying this nonsense. Okay, so we were talking about Robin Stenman, who's with this organization called Moms for Liberty. I'm not sure whose liberty, but anyway. So Robin Stenman is counting on a new Tennessee law to force schools to end this curriculum that she says is so dangerous. In reading this, she didn't talk about how concerned she is about African-American children being fed images, being fed information about white supremacy and racism. Okay, her concern is white children feeling guilty about being white. And now keep in mind, the school district is 97% white also. It's a wealthy suburban Tennessee school district. So they want to ban at least one book in the elementary school library written from the perspective of Mexican Americans. Do they realize that a lot of the territory that's part of the U.S. came from Mexico? That was the result of the Mexican-American War and the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, of 1848. California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Utah, Nevada, that was all part of Mexico. And even before then, Texas wins its independence from Mexico in 1836. All that was part of Mexico. So she says her group has ballooned in size since April of 2021 from less than 20 parents meeting at her house to more than 3,000 parents connecting on Facebook. The chapter has grabbed headlines for belligerent protests at school board meetings. They have attacked a high school LGBTQ pride float. One tweet wondered if students passing out pride literature were doing recruitment, quote unquote recruitment. And another meeting featured a tirade by a Moms for Liberty member against a children's book about the lives of seahorses, which she said was too sexual. It was too sexual. Okay, a book about seahorses. So I did some research on this, and yeah, there was a piece from rawstory.com from there was an article from rawstory.com from September 24th, 2021. We're going to pull this up here. See, this is what happens when you get too much time on your hands. They're complaining about a book about seahorses. This story here, I thought they were playing. When I read the article from CNN and they were complaining about I saw they were complaining about a book about seahorses. I thought it was a typo. I thought they were lying. I was like, oh, come on, man. Is this like April Fools or something? I thought they were playing, but no. So I did some research on this. This article here. There are other articles about this as well. Far-right Moms for Liberty group demands schools stop exposing kids to sexy pictures of seahorses. I didn't know seahorses could be sexy. I mean, you just sit back and it's like you people have too much time on your hands. I'm sorry. I didn't know seahorses could be sexy. Okay. But on Friday, the Daily Beast reported that a far-right group in Williamson County, Tennessee, is demanding schools censor a number of books and subjects, including an unusual demand regarding pictures of marine life. Now, they're not talking about Marines. They're not talking about men Marines. They're talking about seahorses. Registering its website in late 2020, the group Moms for Liberty is one of a series of conservative education groups to spring up in the wake of the 2020 racial justice protests. See, I'm trying to tell people all this is a backlash to what happened last summer. The group is currently involved in battles against in-school mask mandates, as well as a particularly heated fight over school textbooks in Tennessee's Williamson County. Among their demands are that lessons about Martin Luther King Jr. and Ruby Bridges be cut for being divisive. Lessons about civil rights crackdowns be cut for, quote, negative views of firemen and police. You mean when the firemen were using water hoses to knock black people off their feet? You more concerned about people having, now I really haven't heard people today say they have animosity to firemen for what happened back in the 60s, but just say hypothetically, right? Why wouldn't you be concerned about firemen and police having animosity towards African Americans? See, this is negative views of firemen and policemen, quote unquote, and lessons about Galileo be revised for being too anti-church. The story of Johnny Appleseed was also condemned as sad and dark. Greek and Roman mythology for depicting the goddess Venus naked, and textbooks explaining the effects of hurricanes as too violent for first graders. But one of the oddest crusades of this idiotic group called Moms for Liberty is against a children's book on seahorses, which they believe, according to the reporter here, is quote unquote too sexy. Read the rest of this. These some stupid ass people. I'm just going to tell you. I'm just going to be straight up with you. All right. This is why we need to run for school board. This is why we need to control the school boards in our communities, and school boards. We need to be on the school boards where our children go to school, because some of them go to school in suburbs, some of them go to school, and they're it's an integrated school, okay? And the school board, you have people of different races on the school board, things like that. Okay, that's gonna happen. Okay, we have to have representation on the school board, So when you got idiots like this that show up to the school board meeting with their groups of other idiots, okay, you have power to put down nonsense like this. Now, I give you one guess who these dumbasses voted for in the presidential election. So let's go back to this from CNN. But the group's main concern is how American history is taught in school, particularly to younger kids. Now, I guarantee you, most of them can't pass their children's American history test. See, this is a fear that some white people have that plays into it. It deals with the browning of America. It deals with the fear of white people becoming a minority population in this country by the year 2043, and everything dealing with race and racism, systemic racism, teaching the history of slavery, all that stuff. They want to stop all that. They want to stop all that. At the same time, many of them support voter suppression bills, 400 plus voter suppression bills in 49 state legislatures. So they want to control the teaching of the past, and they want to greatly control who can vote to determine the laws of the future. This is what's taking place. In a multi-page complaint to the State Department of Education filed this summer, Moms for Liberty says Williamson County Schools curriculum violates state law because it includes what they say is quote unquote is anti-American, anti-white, and anti-Mexican teaching. Anti-American, anti-white, and anti-Mexican teaching. In May of 2021, Republican Governor of Tennessee, Bill Lee, signed into law HB 580. HB 580, a law aimed at banning so-called critical race theory from schools. Educators argue that critical race theory is not taught or included in K through 12 curriculum, but their parents are dumbasses. And they're sitting up watching Fox News all day, sitting up listening to conservative radio, and they're coming up with nonsense like this about seahorses and Ruby Bridges and the March on Washington book for children. And is usually, so the if critical race theory is taught in college, it's usually an elective class or it's a law school class. Critical race theory is not taught in K through 12. Section 51, Part 6 of the Tennessee law makes lesson plans illegal if students, quote unquote, feel discomfort, guilt, or anguish. Feel discomfort, guilt, or anguish. Are they saying that they shouldn't teach about the Jewish Holocaust in schools? Are they going to say that too? Are they going to say they shouldn't teach about Native Americans and how the land was stolen from Native Americans? They were massacred and killed and raped. Robin Stenman says Williamson County curriculum makes students feel bad about their race, meaning the law should invalidate it, meaning that the law that the governor signed into law, this is why the state legislatures and the governors are so important. She's saying that the new law should invalidate the curriculum. I still haven't seen anything where they took a poll of students that said we feel bad about our race because of a book that we learned, a book that we read about the March on Washington or Ruby Bridges or something like that. See, I think what some of these white people are really afraid of is their children are going to learn the atrocities that their ancestors committed, and they're going to come home and ask their parents hard questions, especially if they find out like their granddaddy was a member of the Klan or their great granddaddy was a member of the Klan or something like that, and he helped lynch African Americans, something like that. See, the children are going to have some hard questions because a lot of these children, have friends of different races, things like this. Now, some of them are bigots just like their parents, but others are not. Okay. Others will disagree with their parents because they have friends of different races, so they have a different perspective. The Tennessee Department of Education declined requests for comment from CNN on the complaint. I wonder why the Tennessee Department of Education doesn't want to comment on this. The books at the center of debate. So with piles of kids' books marked with highlighters and flagged with Post-it notes spread out on her dining room table, Robin Steinman told CNN the books in the school and the way that they're taught leave children of white parents feeling guilty. I still haven't seen any evidence of this. She keeps making this statement. I still haven't seen any evidence of this. She said a letter was brought to my attention that was written by the parents of a biracial second grade boy, and he's half Thai from Thailand and half white. He has a white father and a Thai mother, she said. And then he's suddenly ashamed of his white half, his white father. He only wants to identify as Thai, and he does not want to be an American. Well, you have to put in perspective the history of this country and how this country has oppressed people of different races and ethnicities. You don't stop teaching the history because it makes somebody feel uncomfortable. That's just stupid. So I want to do this. Let's go to clip one here. This is from CNN. This is some great reporting from Evan McMorris Santoro for CNN covering this story. Let's go to this clip, Shakita.
Just outside of Nashville, basic American history is up for debate.
His parents taught him about George Washington, and he identifies George Washington as a white man, and then asked if he would be killed back then because he has brown skin. I mean, he's judging George Washington not by any of what by being the founder of our country.
So when do we tell the kid that, in fact, he may have been killed back then because of the color of his skin?
Well, I'm not sure that's what you teach, that you would have been killed for the color of your skin. That's a narrative, really.
Robin Steinman is trying to change the narrative on race in the Williamson County, Tennessee public school district. She pulled her child out of public school, and now she leads a chapter of Moms for Liberty in this wealthy, Republican-leaning suburb. Nationally, the group is known for loudly protesting school masking.
And it has traumatized Williamson County kids.
But Steinman's chapter filed a different kind of complaint with the Tennessee Department of Education this summer.
Because it's historically accurate, it's appropriate for 6, 7, 8-year-olds.
Moms for Liberty is angry about an inclusion curriculum being taught in the county public schools. They're mostly concerned about 4 books being taught in 2nd grade. One tells a story of school segregation through the eyes of Mexican-American students. One is about the March on Washington. And 2 are about civil rights icon Ruby Bridges.
I'll show you in the teacher's manual. It instructs the teacher to point this word out and teach about racial slurs.
Steinman says it's okay for kids to read the book Bridges wrote about her experience as a 6-year-old, but it's not okay for kids to talk about some of the pictures in the book, like Norman Rockwell's famous painting.
All this curriculum highlights is the mean white people and how she's victimized, and it speaks to nothing of the good.
Educators across the country are alarmed by talk like this.
We see some sort of almost manufactured crisis here. There is a crisis in how we teach history in this country. You would never go into a school in Germany and say, oh, why do you teach about Nazism? You would never ask that question, because they do teach about it, because teachers want kids in Germany to understand what that history was.
The Moms for Liberty complaint says students are being taught lessons that have anti-American, anti-white, and anti-Mexican teaching. And state law may be on their side.
We will not be teaching critical race theory in Tennessee.
In May, the governor signed HB 580 into law. It bans lesson plans that make students, quote, feel discomfort, guilt, or anguish because of their race. Moms for Liberty says the new rules mean separate is never equal. A picture book about the California schools in the 1940s should be banned because it makes both white and Hispanic kids feel bad.
The ones where it looks like the Mexican children are behind bars. And
that surprises the book's author.
The villain here is racism, it's segregation. And at the end of the book, what I wanted to show is the Mexican-American children and the white children being in school together and playing together and interacting with each other.
These conversations about the past are very relevant, other moms in the community say.
My son had an incident at his middle school that was where students locked arms, and if you were white, they would break the arms to let kids go through. If you were black, they kept their hands together and told you that you needed to go back to Mexico. They said they were building a wall. They were building a wall.
Public school moms Ravita Rahman and Jennifer Cortez founded the group One Wilco after a series of racial incidents rocked the district.
What's concerning about the law, it's not inclusive of everybody. I don't think it's divisive talking about these uncomfortable topics.
They're bullying our school board. They're bullying our elected officials.
The school board told CNN it's reviewing the books cited in the complaint. What would it mean for education if books like Separate is Never Equal were pulled off the shelves by these laws that we're seeing spread up across the country?
Well, I think we're entering toward a pretty scary time if we're talking about politicians banning books. I thought we were long past those days. Educators know how to talk about race with kids in an age-appropriate way. These conversations can be had and in a way that is in keeping with our core values as Americans.
Evan McMorris-Santoro, CNN, Williamson County, Tennessee.
All right, excellent reporting from Evan McMorris Santoro for CNN. Sorry you had to go talk to that ignorant ass woman. I'm sorry. I really feel sorry for you. I really do. But anyway, these are the type of people showing up at school board meetings, just going crazy. Read this article here from rawstory.com, September 29th, 2021. Raw Story picked up this story from CNN. Conservative Tennessee parents want teachers banned from discussing conservative Tennessee parents want teachers banned from discussing famous anti-segregation Norman Rockwell painting. They don't want teachers to talk about this anti-segregation Norman Rockwell painting. What is it, y'all? What is it you all afraid of? Maybe y'all should just go separate and form your own country or something. You know. So they talk about the article from CNN, the reporter from CNN. Right-wing group is objecting to teaching of multiple books about the civil rights movement because it makes their students, quote unquote, feel discomfort with their own whiteness. 3 of the books about the civil rights movement are problematic for the way they're taught, Robin Stemman says. March on Washington, okay, and to tell the story of Ruby Bridges, 6-year-old who integrated an elementary school in New Orleans in 1960. Now, the book Ruby Bridges Goes to School is written by Ruby Bridges herself. The book Ruby Bridges Goes to School, written for elementary school students, was written by Ruby Bridges herself, and is fine for kids to read, Robin Stemman said, but she says teachers should not be allowed to lead discussions of the pictures in the book, one of which is the famous Norman Rockwell painting of Ruby Bridges, the U.S. Marshals who had to protect her from an angry segregationist white crowd and the ugly slur hurled at her by adults. See, I think some of these people are afraid they're going to find out, like some of these little children's granddaddies were out there and their grandmothers were out there yelling at Ruby Bridges, yelling racial slurs. I think they're going to be afraid. They're afraid that they're going to find out about their grandparents and great grandparents and things like this. Okay, so read that one. Now, in the beginning of that interview with CNN, she was asked about George Washington. Notice she didn't talk about George Washington owning 318 slaves. Notice she didn't talk about George Washington sending out slave catchers to bring back his runaway slaves, like Ona Judge, who's a runaway slave, ran away from Martha Washington. Notice she ain't talking about anything about that. George Washington being a brutal slave owner, anything. She didn't mention that at all. But he was asked a question. But Evan McMorris asked a question about someone being killed back at the time of George Washington because of the color of their skin. And she said she didn't think that should be taught. Well, it's true, you could have been. But she didn't want to talk about the fact that people being enslaved for the color of their skin. Notice that. So now the problem with crazy people like this is they actually vote. And they vote other crazy people like themselves in the office. All right. Let's go. I want to go to this next article here, this next story. And you know, now this is why the study from the Southern Poverty Law Center is so important. Teaching hard history, American slavery. Teaching hard history, American slavery. See, they should use this in the Williamson school district, Williamson County School District. This is about a 56-page study from the Southern Poverty Law Center that documents how the history of slavery, about 50 pages, documents how the history of slavery is being incorrectly taught in schools all across the country. And it makes numerous excellent recommendations to more correctly teach that history. You can download this from splcenter.org, Southern Poverty Law Center. It's called Teaching Hard History, American Slavery. Every school district should use that. Now, there are other things that they can use. That, you know, I'm not saying that's the only thing, but every school district, if they use that, it would help a lot. And a lot of these parents don't know. A lot of these parents are ignorant. And a lot of the parents need help. Now, you have some parents who admit that they don't know and don't understand history and they want to know. You have others that, you know, may be elitist, maybe affluent, think they know everything. And, you know, some of them, they just need to go separate and go set up their own school district or whatever they want to do. But teaching hard history, American slavery from the Southern Poverty Law Center. And on the board, on the advisory board was Dr. Hassan Kwame Jeffries, who we've interviewed here on the show before, nephew of one of my teachers, Dr. Leonard Jeffries. So if you go to just, okay, we'll look at this. Okay, no, that's not it. Yeah, just go to splcenter.org and search for Teaching Hard History, American Slavery. And here is the PDF of it. You can download. I took it to the printer and had it printed. All right. Okay, I want to go to this next story here. So today's the anniversary of the, we commemorate the Elaine, Arkansas Race Massacre. The Elaine, Arkansas Race Massacre, September 30th, 1919. And there's a good piece from equaljustice-initiative.org as well as the Zen Education Project. The Zen Education Project. If we look at this story here from the Zen Education Project, and we're going to pull this up. This was an effort by African-American sharecroppers to organize to get better wages. Okay, organize to get better wages. Also, SmithsonianMag.com has a good article dealing with this as well. Okay, let's pull this up here. Okay, so on September 30th, 1919, and this is during the Red Summer of 1919 as well, where you had over 25 major race riots in the country, and this was one of them. September 30th, 1919, African-American farmers met in Elaine, Arkansas, with Robert L. Hill, to establish the Progressive Farmers and Household Union of America. The Progressive Farmers and Household Union of America. And they organized this union to fight for better pay and higher cotton prices. And here's a picture of Robert Hill. He survived the massacre. Now, a white mob shot at these African-American sharecroppers, and the farmers then returned fire in self-defense because that made logical sense. And there's a lot of cases of us doing that, returning fire, because we defended ourselves, and the Second Amendment applies to us as well. Now, news of the confrontation spread, and a massacre ensued, leaving more than 100 African Americans dead. Now, estimates are up to 800 African Americans dead in total. You'll see different. I've seen between 100 to 800 killed. Okay, 67 indicted for inciting violence, and 12 African American sharecroppers, the Elaine 12, sentenced to death. Not only were African Americans massacred, they were also blamed for the event and charged with murder. The Elaine massacre occurred at the end of the Red Summer of 1919, which was a series of brutal attacks on African Americans in more than 36 cities, including Chicago, Washington, D.C., Norfolk, Knoxville, and more. All right. This is a picture here of the Elaine 12 defendants: Ed Hicks, Frank Moore, J.C. Knox, Ed Coleman, and Paul Hall. Scipio A. Jones. The group's counsel stands to the left. So this is 6 of the Elaine 12. Ida B. Wells produced a booklet called The Elaine Riot, which can be read online at archive.org. So here's some information from the Zen Education Project about the Elaine, Arkansas massacre of 1919. Now, they also have information at EJI.org, Equal Justice Initiative, dealing with this. And if we look quickly here at this piece from Equal Justice Initiative, there are a number of articles on the Elaine, Arkansas race massacre. Somebody should send this to Robin Steinman as well. Hopefully it doesn't make her feel uncomfortable. Hundreds of Black people killed in Elaine, Arkansas massacre, September 30th, 1919. This is from EJI.org, Equal Justice Initiative. So they go through, Progressive Farmers Union, knowing that Black union organizing often attracted opposition. Black men stood as armed guards around the church where they were organizing while the Phillips County meeting took place. When a group of white people from the Missouri Pacific Railroad attempted to intrude and spy on the meeting, the guards held them back and a shooting erupted. At least 2 white men were killed, and enraged white mobs quickly formed. The mobs descended on the nearby Black town of Elaine, Arkansas, destroying homes and businesses and attacking any African Americans in their path over the coming days. Okay, those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We'll keep going for a couple more minutes. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Register for a new 10-week online course. Starts on Sunday, October 3rd. 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Remember, right now is correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. All right. Just a second here. Let me go back to this. Let's finish this quickly. Let me change this. Okay, just a second. Hold on. How's everybody doing? Share this broadcasting on social media platforms. Also, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $, the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, and then through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. Okay, let's go back to this here. So the mobs descended on the nearby black town of Elaine, Arkansas, destroying homes and businesses and attacking black people in their path over the coming days. Terrified African-American residents, including women and children and the elderly, fled their homes and hid for their lives in nearby woods and fields. A responding federal troop regiment claimed only 2 black people were killed, but many reports challenged the white soldiers' credibility and accused them of participating in the massacre. Accused them of participating in the massacre. Today, historians estimate hundreds of African Americans were killed in the massacre. When the violence was quelled, 67 African Americans were arrested and charged with inciting violence, while dozens more faced other charges. No white attackers were prosecuted. But 12 African-American Union members were convicted of riot-related charges, and they were sentenced to death. Now, the NAACP, along with local African-American lawyer Scipio Africanus Jones. Africanus means belonging to Africa, by the way. It's Latin, okay? Scipio Africanus Jones. Now, they represented Scipio Africanus Jones represented the men on appeal and successfully obtained reversals of all their death sentences. Okay, so read this here from Equal Justice Initiative, EJI.org. Hundreds of black people killed in Elaine, Arkansas massacre. And this is one of the worst massacres, if not the worst one of it's one of the worst massacres in history, if not the worst. So check this out also. Then the Smithsonian Mag has a good article on this also. So we talk about the Red Summer in the second online course that I teach, from the Civil War to the Civil Rights Movement and Black Power, 1865 to 1968. The Red Summer of 1919, where you had over 25 major race riots in this country, and that's the year after World War I ends. That's something that we deal with, those different race massacres. We look at some of those. Chicago, there's a big one in Chicago also, July 1919. And after World War I ends, so you had about 5 million men that fought in World War I for the U.S., most of them white. When they left to go fight in the war, they left jobs behind. When they came back, those jobs were being filled by African Americans, many of them from the South going up north, but then also immigrants that were here. And this created racial tensions when these men came back home and couldn't find jobs, and it exploded into race riots all across the country. This one here from Smithsonian Mag, the massacre of black sharecroppers that led the Supreme Court to curb the racial disparities of the justice system. This is from August 2nd, 2018. This is about the Elaine, Arkansas race massacre as well. The massacre of black sharecroppers that led the Supreme Court to curb the racial disparities of the justice system. White Arkansans, people from Arkansas, white Arkansans fearful of what would happen if African Americans organized, took violent action, but it was the victims who ended up standing trial. Okay. And these are some defendants of the Elaine 12. So read this one as well. All right, look, we have to get out of here. If you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN show through Cash App, $ the AHN show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. We're here 6 days a week. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting. This is our official Cash App account, $ TheAHNShow, SHOW. And these other ones are fake African History Network Cash App accounts. When you go to ours, it says Michael, shows my picture there. Our actual Cash App tag is $ TheAHNShow, SHOW. Okay. Also, we have a sale going on. Orders of $100 or more at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com get 20% off. Orders of $100 or more get 20% off. And that's right at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Use promo code AHN20OFF 2021. Use promo code AHN20OFF 2021. Promo code. All right, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now, it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever.